Today we're going to take a look inside Silver Moon Spelling, Set 1, and I'm going to share with you an in-depth look inside and my personal and professional thoughts on this. Hi, I am Sarah from Homespun Childhood. I'm a former teacher turned homeschool mom of 3, literacy specialist, and literacy consultant. I work in the homeschool world, sharing all things literacy related, also just general curriculum planning, homeschool life, and more. So let's jump in. This program is not cheap. I'm going to just start with that, okay? It's currently $136, digital or hard copy. So if you are outside of the United States, you can access this online, the materials. This program is one of the programs I recommend for struggling spellers. Show signs of dyslexia, dysgraphia. We have been diagnosed with one of those things. We have a learning disability. We have tried other things and they're not working, okay? So that's my caveat on this. I say all that because it's not cheap. Could you use this with a typical learner? Absolutely. It's expensive though, okay? So that's that. What you get with this program, you get one book. This is set 1. There are 3 levels of this program. You get 2 sets of cards. The cards are identical. One set is big, one set is small. Okay. In the back, they have the rule, an example. Same thing on these. They do have a new online component. However, at this point, it is new, and so there's not a lot of video content in it. If you want to check it out, it's only $5 a month for the first few months, so you could see if that helps you. All right, so let's look at this. This book is very like no frills, okay? It's like just black and white text on heavy cream paper. We have our introduction, we have our overview, what are the rules. This is kind of a little bit of their reasoning and like their why. If you go on their website, they do have additional information on systematic and explicit spelling instruction, on the research behind all of this. So if you want more of an in-depth kind of overview and the kind of reasoning behind it, they do have that on their website. How is this program different? They're talking about how they use the rules in a fun, logical way. So if you have children who really thrive on rules and logic, and little examples and characters, like a visual kind of perspective, this might be something that works well for them. I am using the cards and the rules with my daughter, who is in 2nd grade right now. I wouldn't recommend just purchasing this program to use, but like she loves the little picture cards, and I have the big ones actually are posted on our schoolroom bookshelf. And so when she is spelling something, I'll just point up to the rule and I'll say sick elk or, Sammy zebra. And she can look and that helps her remember. So again, this program is about shifting the emphasis away from that traditional weekly spelling list to understanding the rules behind this. They say set 1 is appropriate to use with most students beginning in 1st grade and can be used throughout adulthood. So assumptions here, your child has auditory discrimination. They can hear the different sounds and words. They have basic kind of phonics skills down. We talk about phonemic awareness, the different activities, segmentation, deletion, matching. If you have an older student who is really struggling with spelling and foundational reading skills, I do recommend making sure you're also targeting their reading needs. If they're really struggling with phonemic awareness, one of the things I recommend is Equipped for Reading Success and these phonemic awareness drills. The whole reading component, though, is a whole separate topic for another day, so I will link to more on that. All right, so the format, using their rules, okay, you're systematically and explicitly teaching these rules. You're doing assessments to drive your instruction, okay? We're not talking about fill in the bubble, fancy assessments. We're talking about let's make sure they learned what we taught them before we move on, or let's make sure that they understand it and fully grasp it and are applying it, and if not, what we can do to change that. We go into learning targets. The bulleted targets at the top of each lesson are for professionals, clinicians, or parents who are teaching this. These are the targets correlated to standards. Frequency of instruction. They say 2 to 3 times a week for spelling. I really recommend a 4 or 5 day a week spelling routine. I have an entire guide on spelling instruction and how to develop those routines using whatever curriculum you're using. So if you're wondering, how do I take this program or any other spelling program and stretch it out over 4 or 5 days, please check out that link below. It talks about our materials that we need. You really don't need a lot of materials for this. I do recommend having some kind of movable alphabet for this. I also recommend doing phoneme grapheme mapping with your spelling words, and I use the Schoolnest spelling notebook that has the boxes for mapping our different sounds and then rewriting it. It also has lines in the back for doing like dictation sentences. Differentiation, extension activities, story building, and then our lesson sequence. So this is how you are teaching a lesson. And remember, the lessons are, for an entire rule. So like 1 week kind of worth of lessons. Then we move into our spelling rules for set 1. So the rules are your different lessons. So you're going to move through queen quail, so that's the rule that Q is never without a U, and so forth. Part 1, spelling 1-syllable words with closed syllables. They do have a download Silver Moon 7 Types of Syllables guide on their website, and so then we're going to start with a pre-test, okay? The pre-test and the post-test help you see what does my child really need for this unit, and did they then accomplish that? So you're going to administer the pre-test before teaching lessons 1 through 6. Okay, don't show students the correct spelling of the given words after the pretest. They want you to hold off on that. Don't share their scores before it until after you have taught the lesson, and then they can see their growth. Okay, we're setting them up for success there. You have the little pretest right here. It says have the students number a blank piece of paper 1 through 20. You could use blank paper. You could do that in a notebook, and then you're going to score their percentage correct. They also have the pretest form separately in the back if you want like a larger form that's not kind of embedded in this for your records. So this again is the pretest for lessons like 1 through 6. Then we're going to do a rule 1. So this is your lesson for like a week, okay? We have our learning target up here. Q, U are inseparable in English words. Q never without U in English words. U is not acting as a vowel, and QU says 2 sounds qu. So this is really a great breakdown for you if you are unfamiliar with why we're teaching this and exactly how to teach it. So these are the learning targets kind of for you, for what you're teaching them. Then we have our special notes. The word Q-tip is an unusual word, etc. Then we go into our different lesson steps. Okay, so it says step 1, review. We don't have any to review, but we are going to review closed syllables. If you are unfamiliar with what closed syllables are, it would be part of like a foundational reading program when we're listening to the difference between a closed syllable and an open syllable. So a closed syllable is when we have a consonant sound at the end of a syllable, and that would mean the vowel is saying it's, short sound or whatever the vowel sound was making based on the rules. So for example, the word or syllable on is closed because it has n at the end of it, compared to the word no is open. It does not have a consonant following the vowel. It ends in a vowel, and therefore that vowel is going to make its long sound, O. We have our student goals. Now we're going to share with the student our objectives. Literally going to tell them their objectives. This is helpful. A lot of students need this scripted. This is what the point of our lesson is, okay? Any questions before we begin? Blah, 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 blah. We're going to do our modeled lesson. We're going to talk about these 2 letters. Show the letters QU in writing or on letter tiles. Can you tell me the names of these letters? Do you know what sound the QU make? Okay, continuing on with our lesson. We show them the rule card for queen quail. This rule is called queen quail. What's the name of the rule? Your student should respond with queen quail. Give your student a few minutes to look at the picture and then ask them, what do you notice about the picture? What do you think the word queen and quail are used in this rule? Can you find the hidden letter Q used in the picture? And then the rule on the back is Q is never without U. QU says 2 sounds qu. We have tips and tricks in here. If the students continue to hear one sound, have them listen closely while you say qu again and ask them to count the sounds they hear. That was step 3, our modeling of the lesson or the skill. And then it says, do we have any questions before we start spelling words with this rule? So now we're moving into step 4, where we're going to lead. It's guided practice with real words. So this program is moving through that gradual release process. I, the teacher, I'm doing it, I'm showing it. We do, we're doing it together, and then you do, you're doing it independently. So it's scripted out for us. I'm going to draw sound boxes for this word. Each box will represent how many phonemes or units or sounds our word contains. And so they have the little boxes in the back for you. The L-Conan boxes, you can just draw these. You can use, little toys. If you're using like a movable alphabet, you can do lines on a whiteboard. There's lots of ways to do this, but this is phoneme grapheme mapping, which we know is essential for really mapping the way we spell the words and read the words. When I say mapping, I mean there's the brain research on how our brain is like literally mapping this to parts of our brain. So it's scripted. The students are going to write the corresponding sounds. Finger spelling, if students have difficulty completing step F, teach them how to finger spell. We have our little tips and tricks over here. It's a little bit confusing because we have step F where you're saying the words for them to spell. Students check their work by saying each sound, blending, and finally reading the words smoothly. Really encouraging matching those sounds to the letters. Check your work. Did you spell everything correctly? We have our real words, and then we have extra real words. And then we have step G where you are having them check their work, but then the word lists are underneath step G. So this is your word list that you're using. And then you can have extra words if if your child is really mastering these well, you can do the additional extra words. But noting that not all of the sounds and the words have been taught yet. Students check their work by saying each sound, blending, and finally reading the words smoothly. Students check their work by saying each sound, blending, and finally reading the words smoothly. Really encouraging matching those sounds to the letters. Check your work. Did you spell everything correctly? We have our real words, and then we have extra real words. Really encouraging matching those sounds to the letters. Check your work. Did you spell everything correctly? Then we have guided practice with nonsense words, and you have your nonsense words over here. Here's the thing. Nonsense words are actually really beneficial for both reading and spelling, especially with children who are struggling, because they really force you to apply the concept. You can't have just memorized the word or have, seen it enough times. You have to really have the skill mastered. What we see with some children, especially children who have gone through a reading program or a traditional spelling program that didn't explicitly teach the phonics skills, it was more whole language based where they are learning words in context, is that children can sometimes get most of the words they use on a regular basis spelled correctly. But then when they get into older grades or more advanced levels of reading or spelling, they then struggle to segment apart multisyllabic words and spell those individual syllables because they never mastered the rules for spelling. And so the nonsense words will help with that. And step 6 is wrap up the lesson. What is the name of this rule? Tell me the rule without looking at the back of the card. And then they say test. It's really not so much of a test. There's like an independent practice sheet that we'll look at in a minute. Step 7, extension. Research shows that spelling instruction should complement reading instruction. The spelling rule should be related to and applied during your reading lessons. 2 extension activities are word detectives and story builders. Descriptions of both can be found in the beginning of the manual. And we have fun facts for here. So if we come back to the beginning of the manual, we have our little extension activities here. Word detectives look through their own writing for words that follow the rule. Story builders use their imagination to tell a story. My own extensions for this would be to give them little sentences that use the word in it for them to write down. And so, if you have a spelling notebook or whatever, any notebook will do, just give them a little sentence, and you can make it silly or funny or, related to their life or their interest. I quit spelling, or if they hate spelling, ham it up. Okay. So give them a couple little sentences that they can do. That would be a way to extend this to another day. We have an example here of the sound box. Okay. And so noticing that the way we do phoneme grapheme mapping is that each sound gets one box, not each letter. Then we have our little practice sheet here. You copy this. Okay, so you do need a copier for this unless you have the digital format where you can print it. And then you move into Rule 2. As we get into different levels, there are some different activities that come up. For example, here's a little word sort for spelling where you're sorting based on the double ending. Each lesson does have an example of one of the sound boxes, and the same kind of format with having the independent practice page. There are more word sorts throughout. Here's an example of sorting between the K and the CK. As we get even farther in, here's the taffy apple rule, where the target is sometimes letters in the middle of a word need to be doubled. This closes off a vowel, making the vowel say its short sound. Double letters say one sound. So taffy apple is our example here, and we have a little table here where we're practicing syllable division and incorrect syllable division, again, based off of the open and closed syllable idea. More sorting based off of j sounds, in the same general format throughout. And again, at the end of each unit, you would do a post-test to see how your child has applied those rules from the 6 lessons, and then you compare their pre- and post-test scores. So that is a quick look inside Silver Moon Spelling. If you have a child who is really struggling with spelling, or you're wondering how to expand Silver Moon Spelling for a week, my spelling guide goes into a bunch of different strategies you can use with any type of spelling program, and includes a sampling weekly routine with a checklist and a dashboard for your planner for planning. So you can check that out on my website. If you're looking for reviews of other spelling programs, I will link them below. I do have a video on spellography, which again is for students struggling with spelling, and spelling connections. I don't have an all about spelling video up yet, but that is coming in the near future. So if you found this helpful, please hit that like and subscribe button, and I will see you around.